What up, YouTube? It's Kurt here. I'm going to bring you this match today and talk a little bit about Shaymin EX. Alright, so ever since this card came out, it's been really popular. Let's talk about how viable it is to use in gameplay and whether it's worth using over other cards. Now, I think in this case, the fact that you see this card so much is actually evidence. In this case, it's evidence that the card, yes, it is pretty good. There are some liabilities here. Alright, so if you don't know, Shaymin, when you play it from your hand to your bench, it lets you draw up to 6 cards. So this is really good for a couple reasons. Normally people pair it with Ultra Ball. So Ultra Ball lets you discard 2 cards that you don't need or want, or maybe it's an emergency, and then lets you get Shaymin. Alright, so then that's 3 cards away from your hand, and then you put Shaymin on your bench, and then you get at least, if you pair Ultra Ball with Shaymin, then you get at least 3 refreshing cards in that sense, assuming you're playing early in your hand. Alright, so this can be really advantageous. Essentially, it's like a supporter card. You just did all those moves, but you didn't even play a supporter card. So you can play Shaymin, you can do all these nice moves, and then, yeah, once you do those moves, then you can play a supporter card and draw even more cards. So the name of the game with the trading card game here is that the more cards you draw, the more opportunities you have to make moves and make plays. That's pretty essential to almost any deck. Even the very basic decks like Night March, which is really annoying, but Night March still requires a good card draw. You won't see Shaymin in decks like that, but the point is that drawing cards is almost always a good thing. And that's why Shaymin probably sees so much popularity. I suppose there is the one liability, though. Its attack isn't very good. Its hit points isn't very good. So if you lay it on your bench and then it gets Lysandered when you don't have a lot of other EX Pokemon, then it can be a liability, because then that gives your opponent 2 prize cards. So me personally, I don't like to load up my deck with a lot of EX or GX Pokemon for this reason. Some people always do that with their Pokemon, but it's not always a good idea to have all those cards. Just for the fact that you give up 2 prize cards, and that destroys a lot of people when they're facing other decks like that. All right, so you can see here in this match, he's using the Ultra Ball. He's trying to get a Trevenant set up, but there's the Ultra Ball. He gets Shaymin, and because of that card play, he's able to play Shaymin and draw 5 cards. So that's better than any supporter card will pretty much give you when he draws 5 cards there. And you can do this after you played a lot of items in your hand already. So, in seeing how much this actually helps him, he's able to get up his rare candy and probably has another monster card. Yeah, he's able to get his Nidoking up there. So this is interesting. I applaud this guy because, I don't see very many Nidoking decks. Everything is either Greninja or Night March or Buzzwole decks. It kind of gets old sometimes. So I applaud anybody that brings something new to the table. So as you can see here, I thought this would be a good match to show because actually we both end up playing Shaymin. And my deck, before I didn't have Shaymin in it, but now I've noticed my win percentages, they've gone up significantly since I added Shaymin and I added Blaziken EX. Blaziken's not all that important, but the fact that I have Shaymin is just really nice. So I combine it with a Master Ball and an Ultra Ball, and just it really comes in handy when your card draw is low. And it's also just nice to have. It's also just nice to have the extra monster there, just to prevent mulligans and stuff like that. That's not that important, but it's nice. As you can see here, I like to play Ninetales Break. Really underrated card in my opinion. Along with Arcanine, and these are some of the most powerful non-GX or non-EX Pokemon that you will find, just with their base attack power. Again, the only thing that really rivals these cards, they're really high energy output, but high damage output at the same time. I would say, as far as basic Pokemon, they're the Night March decks, but Night March decks require some setup. It's iffy when I play Night March how well it goes, but I do like to use my lure function. Every time I lure, I can lure out an EX, and that's what works there. So here he actually has 2 Shaymin. Gets the second one set up to draw 3 cards. Now, when you play Shaymin and you draw only 2 or 3 cards, that's not ideal, but if you really need to, I guess that is okay. But normally, Shaymin works wonders when you're able to draw 4, 5, or even 6 cards, since the last card in your hand, and that's when everything the tide really turns for a match and just puts the opponent on the edge. So I think it's also an equalizer. Sometimes when your opponent goes first, that makes everything a little bit harder, but when you're able to get a good card draw, Shaymin helps with that. That helps even things out a little bit. Even though, the person that goes first will always have a step ahead. That's just, with the current rule system, that's just the way it's going to work. Alright, so he plays Shaymin. I get my Ultra Ball. So I don't really need Arcanine. I don't need the Evo Soda because I don't really have any Pokemon to evolve. So I get Shaymin. Put Shaymin on the bench. Yes, so I get a 4-card draw here. And so, this ends up being really good. So I get a Growlithe, and Growlithe is really essential to my deck. Also, the Volcanion. Very good for my deck. So that's a very good card draw, and it's good also because my deck kind of struggles for energy sometimes, and I do that on purpose. My deck's built to go through as much of my deck as possible, and get cards constantly drawing. So I have a little bit less energy than some other decks. I have about 15 regular energy, 2 special energy, but it ends up working out really nicely, and I just have more supporter cards. I also only have 18 monsters, so then I make up for that with either items or supporters, things like that. So N's kind of annoying because, I just, N just put those cards back into my deck, and N can be really frustrating like that, but at the same time, you're still able to make plays from the cards that you had. And that's what's really important. I wouldn't have been able to get my Growlithe or Volcanion up. So I got my Sophocles, was able to discard. All really important things. As you can see here, sometimes I really stretch out my energies quite a lot. But that's okay. I only have 2 left in my deck, and that is perfectly fine. Because this is more of a kind of a regeneration deck, I'll put it that way. Because I pull out my Volcanion, attach energies, bring energies back from the dead, so to speak, and we get it there. So all around and wrapping up, Shaymin is a really, really solid card as long as you know how to use Shaymin. If Shaymin isn't it could be the only EX Pokemon in your deck, and that's perfectly fine. It just gets knocked out really easily if it happens to become active. So make sure you have enough monsters. Otherwise, I wouldn't recommend using Shaymin maybe in the Guzzlord decks that only have 3 monsters in it. I wouldn't recommend it in a deck like that, but for most decks, it's actually, it's pretty versatile. It helps in almost all decks that you can think of. As far to talk about EX in general, EX Pokemon can be really solid. But again, the major trade-off is that, the major trade-off is just those 2 card draws. Alright, so this guy realizes that I just have too many energies set up, and I get a victory. Alright, so thanks, guys. I appreciate it. If you want to subscribe, feel free to comment. I'll have more videos out. Probably one about which supporter is the best. So let me know what you guys think. So peace.